The moment her knees buckled on the cold diner floor, the room seemed to hold its breath. Plates froze halfway to mouths, coffee cups trembled in aging hands, and the hum of the fluorescent lights grew louder than the beating of her heart. She had only asked for food for her children, not charity, not pity, just something warm to carry home. But instead of kindness, she felt a rough hand shove her forward, her dignity scattering like crumbs across the tiled floor. In that instant, pain wasn't the worst part. It was the shame. Before this story pulls you deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for those who have nothing left to lose, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Corner. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because compassion has no borders. Her name was Mara Collins, and life had been peeling pieces away from her long before she stepped into that diner. A year earlier, she had a small apartment that smelled of laundry soap and bedtime stories, a job cleaning offices at night, and 2 children who still believed their mother could fix anything. Then the layoffs came, followed by rent notices taped to her door, and finally the quiet terror of watching cupboards empty faster than her hope. Mara did everything she could. She walked miles looking for work, swallowed her pride at food pantries, and learned how to stretch a single loaf of bread across 3 days. But that morning, her youngest had cried from hunger so hard that his face turned red, and something inside her cracked. She gathered every ounce of courage she had left and walked into the diner, thinking that asking for leftovers would be easier than watching her children sleep hungry again. The diner was warm, smelling of grease and coffee, and for a brief second, it felt like safety. The booths were filled with regulars who had stories etched into their wrinkles, people who came every morning because routine was the only thing keeping them upright. Behind the counter stood Ronan Keller, the manager, a man hardened by years of control and bitterness. He saw Mara not as a mother or a human being, but as a disruption. When she asked quietly if there was any food that would be thrown away, his face tightened with irritation. He saw weakness and decided to crush it. His voice rose, his temper flared, and before anyone could fully process what was happening, his hand was on her shoulder, shoving her back as if she were something dirty that needed to be swept out. Mara stumbled, her palms scraping the floor, her chest burning with humiliation. She tried to explain herself, but fear strangled her words. The room stayed silent, not because people agreed, but because fear spreads faster than courage. Some looked away, others stared in disbelief, and a few clutched their cups tighter, wishing they were anywhere else. Ronan's anger fed on that silence. He felt powerful, justified, convinced that he was protecting his business from someone he deemed lesser. He did not notice the diner door opening behind him, or the way the air shifted when heavy boots stepped inside. Outside, a group of bikers had stopped for breakfast, their engines cooling in the parking lot. They were not the monsters people imagined when they saw leather vests and tattoos. They were men and women who had learned loyalty the hard way, who understood what it meant to fall and be pulled back up by someone who refused to let go. Their leader, Elias Monroe, had lived a life that taught him how thin the line was between survival and despair. When they walked in and saw a woman on the floor with tears streaking her face, something ancient and unbreakable stirred in them. They didn't rush. They didn't shout. Their presence alone shifted the balance of the room. Elias took in the scene with a calm that made Ronan uneasy. The manager's anger faltered when he realized he was no longer the biggest force in the room. The bikers stood quietly, forming an unspoken wall, their eyes locked not with threat, but with judgment. The silence became unbearable. Mara pushed herself up slowly, her hands shaking, her heart pounding so loud she thought it might give her away. She expected more cruelty. Instead, she felt something else fill the space, something warm and steady. Respect. The truth spilled out without anyone raising their voice. The bikers learned why Mara had come, learned about the children waiting at home, learned how easily life had turned against her. Each word stripped away Ronan's sense of authority until he looked smaller than the fear he had tried to impose. The regulars began to stir, guilt loosening their tongues and courage blooming late but strong. Someone stood. Then another. The room that had been silent moments ago began to breathe again. Mara felt the shift before she fully understood it. Hands helped her to her feet, not roughly, but gently, as if she mattered. Food appeared on the counter, plates filled without being asked. Someone pressed a coat into her hands, noticing how thin her sweater was. The bikers did not demand anything. They simply stayed, their presence reminding everyone that cruelty thrives only when good people stay quiet. Ronan retreated behind the counter, his authority dissolved, his actions exposed under the unforgiving light of decency. As Mara sat, eating slowly, tears fell into her food, not from shame this time, but from relief. For the first time in months, she felt seen. She felt like a mother again, not a failure. The bikers shared the space with her, not as saviors, but as witnesses to her strength. They reminded her, without speeches or promises, that the world still held people who would step in when things went too far. When she finally stood to leave, her arms were full. Not just with food for her children, but with something far heavier and more precious. Hope. Outside, the sun had climbed higher, and the air felt different, lighter. The engines of the bikes roared to life, not in menace, but in solidarity, a reminder that sometimes help arrives in forms you never expect. Mara walked home with steady steps, her back straighter than it had been in a long time. That night, her children ate until they were full, and she watched them sleep with a heart that felt stitched back together. She knew her struggles weren't over. Bills would still wait, jobs would still be uncertain, and fear would still visit her in quiet moments. But now she also knew something else. She was not alone. And neither was anyone else who dared to ask for help. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can change the direction of a life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so more stories like this can be told. Before this video ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment below with a single word that represents what this story made you feel, because your words might be the encouragement someone else is searching for.